let's just say it out loud. I love Sami Zayn. Also, hello and welcome to Ups and Downs, the wrestling review show with me, Simon Miller, where I watch wrestling so you don't have to. And my message for you today is all about this swanky hat I've decided to put on. Because you wake up in the morning and you decide you want to have a swanky hat, put it on your head, wear it with pride. We shall get back to Sami Zayn later on too, and my word, you should be excited. But SmackDown this week kicked off with Natalya and Shotzi taking on Ronda, Rousey and Shayna Baszler. And man, talking about the things I have love for, I also adore a Canadian crowd. It also tied into everything we did 7 days ago, and of course Natty got a hero's welcome because she is from Canada. And then Ronda couldn't do anything. They were all going boo, boo, and nobody was saying boo-earns. So that's it for me now. Ronda Rousey got to go proper heel. Kind of looks like she is. Fair play to her and Shotzi as well, because they redid that DDT into the ring apron bit that they tried a few months ago that didn't work, and they absolutely nailed it. If you're not going, Simon, where's the hardest part of the ring skit? Well, I told you, we're only doing one a week, and it was on Dynamite Ups and Downs. So that's right, I'm shilling out my wares. What you buying? We don't even need to talk about moves either, because this was all about the reaction. Even when Ronda got tagged in, once again, it was just like, I hate you so much, I can't believe you're even a wrestler. I mean, I absolutely got into it, because it's the equivalent of you going to a shop and you're trying to buy some bread, and the person behind you was like, oh, you're buying bread, are you? What an absolute prick. It's like, I'm just trying to do normal things here. And they are really gonna hate her now too, because Baszler and Ronda won. Of course, Natalya got her little moment, and she applied the sharpshooter onto Ronda Rousey, and this crowd was desperate for her to tap out. It was never going to happen. Baszler made the save. She got rid of Nat, and then Ronda locked on the armbar to Shotzi. She tapped out. So this really was super fun and a great way to start the show, because when you have a crowd that this hot, it just makes it all the more entertaining. That's why I'm giving it up. And then, not in my wildest dreams, could I have predicted what came next. Like, I could have been guessing until I was 102, and A, I would have wasted my life, but B, I never would have figured this out. Because Hit Row was back, and once again, they have definitely pissed somebody off, given what was about to happen. But they were also pissing off Montreal, because Top Dollar and B-Fab started doing this rap, and they insulted Bret the Hitman Hart. This worked on me too. I was like, you don't come into his land and say bad things about him, somebody get him. Throughout all of this, Bray Wyatt's logo kept flashing up on screen too, and then eventually the lights came out. When they came back on, there was Wyatt and Uncle Howdy. They absolutely destroyed these guys, as Michael Cole also took his weekly shot at Top Dollar. So something is going on here, we don't know what it is. Wyatt was also a bit like, oh man, I'm just friends with Uncle Howdy now. And I was like, well, how did that happen? Because the last time I saw you two together, sure, Unc dropped a big elbow drop onto LA Knight, but it's not like you two were friends. And didn't he, Sister Abigail, you recently? Why aren't you pissed off about that? This madness continued though, because then Bray went, hey Brock Lesnar, hey Bobby Lashley, depending on what happens tomorrow night at the Elimination Chamber, I want next. And this was my face. Couldn't believe it. So is that what we're doing at WrestleMania? Because that's kind of a weird one. Because Brock versus Bray, I don't even know how you do that. And while Bobby Lashley makes more sense, I don't really think that Bob should be losing to Bray Wyatt. So I'm totally baffled. Also, don't get me wrong, Wyatt shouldn't be losing either. I mean, I suppose if the Hurt Business get back together, you could do a tag team match. But that really is 2 + 2 = potato. Shirts now on Pro Wrestling Tees. I tell you though, this set me so loopy and into like an intrigue well, which is a very nice place to go. I've got to give it an up, because does it make me want to see where this is going to go? Yes, it does. But it's got to be a down for everything between Bray and Uncle Howdy. Because if somebody busted in here right now and said, Simon, I'm going to rip your head off unless you explain what happened here, do you know the only thing I could do? Ever wonder why a Santa Claus wearing 2 Father Christmas hats and another hat pops up on your wrestling review video halfway through, even though it doesn't make any sense? Well, sometimes, much like in wrestling, stuff just happens. So if you're now freaking out and trying to get the answers to life questions, remember, you can always call us at 0800 Stuff Just Happens, and we can't promise you what will happen after that, because as I've just explained for the last 30 seconds, sometimes stuff just happens. Why don't you fuck? Madcap Moss and Emma were then chatting about the fact that Madcap is facing Gunther later, And at the time, I was like, this is like a lamb being led to slaughter. Emma was trying to big him up and said, look, you could win the Intercontinental Championship, which is like somebody coming to me and saying, Simon, I'm sure your hair will grow back. The truth of the matter is, it's not going to happen. Ariel Helwani was in the crowd, given that he is a Montreal native, and that's all we're going to say about that, because we're not getting to all those shenanigans. That's not what we do on Ups and Downs. When it was time for Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus the Viking Raiders, big men slapping man meat. This absolutely rocked too, because they just kicked each other's ass, and Sheamus was ready to hit the bro kick as soon as the bell went, meaning he must have turned on finishers before we pushed the start button. But then Ivar also tried to boot him in the face, but nobody was able to connect. Everyone was then brooding around ringside, so poor Barry Barricade got murked. So I am back on my protest. And I know some people are sick of me doing this, but that's not how a protest works. I will stand here until the cows come home and tell you it's not fair on Barry. You think he wants this? No, he does not. Sadly for the good guys, the commercial break then happened, and when we did come back, the Viking Raiders are in control. So I can only presume that Eric and Ivar went, Scotland and Ireland. England is way much better, and Sheamus and Drew couldn't handle this. Also, as somebody that does live in England, I can tell you that's definitely not true. There's also this cool bit where the Irishman had been down, but he fought back. And at the same time, we got tags to Drew McIntyre and Eric. And Drew actually grabbed this mammoth man, and he was just chucking him around. And then he was dishing out neck breakers. Goes a little weird, and he wants to break someone's neck. He also hit a Michinoku driver onto Eric for a near fall, which is crazy because he's not a small man. Just as Ivar and Sheamus went at it, this thing just broke down. And the reaction to the white noise was like your mother had hit it. I don't know. We then got all the false finishes and this amazing bit when Sheamus was going to go for the bro kick again, but somehow Ivar was going to turn it into a powerbomb. Now this didn't work and they both basically fell on the floor, but I like it when that kind of stuff happens, because if you had two rocks running at each other, they ain't just going to do a big hug, they're probably going to explode. It makes it more real. And then the Raiders also moved out to the floor when Drew McIntyre hit that crazy dive. This is when Sarah Logan or Valhalla was like, man, I'm done with this. She started casting distraction. It meant the Vikings were able to go for Ragnarok, but Sheamus and Drew were having none of that. Sheamus got the bro kick. Drew McIntyre hit the Claymore, 1, 2, 3. And of course these two dudes won. And as we are now headed to WrestleMania, we should do the triple threat match between them and Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. And that very male could steal the show. I also want to note here that throughout the evening we had all these incredible Bloodline videos that just got you so pumped for the Elimination Chamber to the point we're going to give it a round of applause and we're just going to throw an up in there. Because much like the main event segment, it made me feel all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. Kayla Braxton was then with Rey Mysterio. You know the deal with Kayla. She kind of likes to wind people up. Instead though, we showed the footage of Rey and Santos Escobar exchanging masks. That was quite nice because Rey was all like, see, people do respect me and I respect him. When Karrion Kross and Scarlett walked in and were like, we don't respect nothing apart from clocks. Now if I was Mysterio, I would have told him to flub off and gone, I've already beat you, you stupid idiot. But instead, Karrion wanted to talk about the fact that Rey Mysterio is a lousy father. And I was like, all right, I get it. Why don't you just go away? I'm kind of interested in what we're going to do here because we are leading to another match. And is that going to happen at WrestleMania? Because it better not do. I need Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio, maybe even mask versus hair, and the condom should win. It was time to continue to push Asuka next. And once again, I love it. Carmella was also on commentary, which was really strange, because after she had said Raquel Rodriguez's name a lot, out came Raquel, because no wrestler can handle this. It's like looking in a mirror and saying something 3 times. Eventually, the sports entertainer will appear. It also meant eventually Nikki Cross turned up, because of course she too is in the Elimination Chamber. And while I did understand this, we were planting seeds, I was also a bit like, can I not just watch Asuka kick an ass? That's what I paid my admission for. We did get some of that, because when Empress was on Tina the Turnbuckle, all of a sudden Liv Morgan flew up there and hit this amazing code breaker. And honestly, around the same time, Nikki Cross was also going, Michael Cole, can we be friends? I don't know what a flub was happening. Asuka and Morgan then just thumped each other for a while when Liv was able to get another code broker. But when she decided to go for the Oblivion, this was a terrible mistake. Because Asuka obviously was clearly ready for this. She applied the armbar and Liv Morgan had to tap out. And as I've said a few times, when we get to the chamber, Asuka should just go through everyone like a knife through butter. And then by the end of it, she could be like, oh man, Bianca Belair, I'm coming for you. And you would totally buy her as a threat. I mean, I buy her as a threat right now. Let's get it up. Of course, there was more after the fact because everybody got in the ring and started to fight, and Carmella took out Asuka, and then Raquel Rodriguez was beating everyone up. And she turned to Liv, who thought was her friend. So Morgan gave her a code breaker too. I liked it. Asuka and Liv then faced off to end this, which is a bit weird because I was like, Liv, she quite literally just beat you, but now we do head to that elimination chamber. And again, make sure we give it to Asuka. More Ariel Helwani stuff after this as he really went to town on Sami Zayn when we cut to Gunther and Megan Morant. The Intercontinental Champion thought it was hilarious that Madcap Moss needed support from his partner. I was a bit like, Gunther, that's just life, man. You always do need someone in your corner, otherwise you're going to be a sad panda. He is probably the exception to the rule, and he promised to retain his title later. And once again, I honestly thought this was going to go about 8 seconds, but when we got the match, I was totally wrong. Good. Because not only did Moss not get squashed, he more than held his own. And when he double-legged Gunther in the early going, I didn't see that coming. But once again, it was an absolute joy, because all the fans were cheering Gunther and they were booing Madcap Moss. Oh, how I need this in my life. Yes, Gunther too, because he just worked a headlock for a while, because I think he was trying to turn the crowd, but that was never going to happen. And some of the chops here, like, I know we see it all the time, but it's quite literally like this. Sounds like a gunshot. Moss then exploded with a spine buster, and once again I was like, how the hell did we get here? When he and Gunther just started hitting each other in the face so hard, I rang up the Do They Know It's Wrestling hotline, and they said they weren't sure. There's also another amazing near fall when Moss hit a fall-away slam from the turnbuckle, and my head was going crazy, and he was able to connect with the punchline. Now obviously Gunther kicked out, but as Wade Barrett said, that's his finishing move. That was kinda a little bit of a big deal. Gunther eventually decided he'd had enough at this point and he choked out Madcap before hitting the powerbomb for the 1-2-3. But this was actually a really good championship match on a random episode of SmackDown. And I tell you this, if we keep going with Gunther and Cody Rhodes wins at WrestleMania, I need to see that title program, especially because it ties into the Royal Rumble. I just think it would be tremendous. Also, do not forget, because hello my friends, welcome to Kayfabe Corner, where I explain a storyline to a non-wrestling fan and try and convert them. So Jerry, can I just confirm that you are not a wrestling fan? Nope. All right, good. Well, I'm about to sell you on sports entertainment, because there is a wrestler called Gunther who walks around the place calling himself the Ring General, and what he likes to do is take his hand and slap people so hard on the chest that by the end of the match, it's all red raw, and somebody looks like they're about to die. Wait a minute, what? That sounds like porn. And then, WWE broke my system. For I try to only give one golden up, especially when it comes to specific promotion, because I like to treat it as if it is a big deal, even though it's just me waggling my fingers around. But this part of SmackDown was reserved for Sami Zayn. It's one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, my tum-tum was just losing it, which is why I wore this top today, because I was feeling warm and fuzzy. And the absolute best bit is that Sami Zayn came out to his old theme, and it just worked so perfectly for babyface Sami. And this Montreal crowd lost their mind, and you could feel the good vibes coming out of the TV and smacking you in the face. I mean, I had goosebumps, and that makes me a moron. It was so much better than generic rock 4.mp3. And even though this was a 10-minute segment, for about 8 minutes, everybody just chanted for Sami. They did the Olay thing, and they just filled him with so much joy. I was just crying. I haven't cared. I was like, because it's nice to see good things happen to good people. I mean, you'd have to have a heart of stone not to have enjoyed this. And after just a barrage of noise, Sam got in the microphone and was like, yep, in 24 hours' time, I shall defeat Roman Reigns. Then it got even better. Because Zayn also spoke in French, which is so smart, because it just means when we get to the Elimination Chamber premium live event, they're going to be even more behind him. Because it ain't Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn, as Zayn said. It is Roman Reigns taking on the entirety of Canada. I'm going to throw the UK in there too. So I just sat there in my pants having a great old time, which sounds absolutely terrible. I don't mean it like that. And yeah, as I've already insinuated, it doesn't just get an up, it gets a golden up. If you watch wrestling because you want to feel something deep down in your tootsie toes, then flub me, what are you doing? You gotta go watch this. WWE also now has a wonderful problem, because Sami Zayn shouldn't lose, but Roman Reigns shouldn't lose either, so what the hell are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna find out this evening, and I actually can't wait. Wear your hat, get fuzzy in your tum-tum, and as I've already said, golden up. Also, do want to mention that if you were watching SmackDown on a particular feed and you were like, why is the sound cut out? Or at the end of the video, it's because the fans were chanting, F you Roman. And he wasn't even there. I got to see this in its entirety, and it was pretty damn good. So, based on that main event segment alone, of course SmackDown is getting an up. I cannot believe the hype going into the Elimination Chamber. I hate the term, but it is a B pay-per-view. but I may be even more excited than I was at the Royal Rumble. So that's just good sports entertainment by me. Here we go. Now please do click the video that's on the screen right now to watch some more WhatCulture content, and leave a comment below, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Go to the website, follow us on social media, but more importantly, just enjoy yourself when it comes to wrestling, because I feel like good times are around the corner.